Equalizer 3 with Denzel Washington. It hit theaters this week as of this recording, today being September 2nd, Labor Day weekend. I went to see this, and this is not the typical Equalizer movie in that while it is extremely violent, there is not as much action. Now don't take me wrong. When we do get action scenes, they are great to watch. But this movie does not play like the other Equalizer films. This one is far more character driven. And it's interesting. It takes place in Italy. So Denzel's character, Robert McCall, Robert McCall, he's in Italy for, and I don't want to give too much away, but he's there for a purpose. And we see a Robert McCall that's a little bit more reflective and trying to, as they always do in these movies, trying to get out of the life, right? But something always pulls them back in. From what I remember of the previous movies, this is a far more violent McCall as well. This is a McCall that if Home Alone starred a black kid who grew up to become a killer, that would be this movie. What's also nice about this film is that, Denzel is not as young as he used to be. I think he's close to 70 now. So this script manages to make it believable that Denzel is capable of doing the things that he does in this movie. It's not, some of it is over the top. Like the first scene where we see him put in some work, it's great. It almost borders on John Wick levels, but outside of that, the things that you see him do in this movie aren't too hard to believe that someone of his age could possibly pull off. And the fact that that was believable is another thing that I liked about this film. A side note, I am a huge fan of the John Wick films, but I got to think after seeing this and combining it with the first two Equalizer movies, I think Robert McCall could take out John Wick, because Robert McCall is all about stealth in this film and the other films. He's the kind of guy. See, John Wick, he rushes in like a bull because he's got that skill. But Robert McCall already has you sized up before you even pick up your gun. That's how he puts his work in this film. Dakota Fanning stars in this as a CIA agent. And it was interesting to see Denzel and her on screen again. It made me feel kind of old because they co-starred together when she was a little girl in Man on Fire. I forget what year that movie came out, but they're reunited on screen. Denzel's going to be Denzel. He's a force of nature. Dakota Fanning, she was just okay to me. I've heard reviews where critics said she was great. I thought she was kind of flat, personally. I mean, serviceable. Her part did not require huge acting chops, but she got the job done. You look at Denzel, who I couldn't help. I know this is wrong, but as he gets older, I mean, he's still a good-looking dude, but he's starting to kind of remind me a little bit of Bill Cosby with his some of the features on his face. But at any rate, that's wrong. I know I'm going to hell for that, but I love Denzel. I met him once, great guy. But this movie features a different Robert McCall, one that's very contradictory. Early on in the film, we see him having flashbacks, nightmares of going on a killing spree. And so we are led to believe, or at least I was, that his life thus far is starting to wear on him. He wants to get out. Yet and still, like I said, while this film is not as action-oriented as the previous two, when we do see that action, it is some of the more violent that I recall from the last two films. I mean, he goes all out in this one. We see bones snapping out of skin. We see fireplace pokers through the throat. We see axes to the head. So the violence in this movie is ratcheted up. There's just not as many action scenes with the violence that we've seen in the previous two films. like I said, this is more of a character-driven film, and the film really benefits from that. I think that's what really made me enjoy this movie. First of all, it's shot by Robert Richardson in, I forget the name of the town, but it's in Italy. And there's also scenes that take place in Rome. And it is beautifully shot in terms of what we see on camera. Now, the photography itself, it has kind of a flat, grainy, gritty type of look, which would not be my preference, but I get it. It makes sense. It's not bad, but I'm telling you, I get a sense that the locations that they shot in, you could not set the camera up and get a bad shot. It's impossible to get a bad shot. So part of my enjoyment of this film was the locations that they shot in. They were just absolutely beautiful. The other part was this film takes its time getting to where it wants to go. And the irony of that is, it's not like this movie's complicated. The plot is not that complicated. I'm not going to give anything away, but it involves one family of the mafia in this particular region that's trying to take over this town. That's pretty much it. I haven't given anything away. Not a complicated plot. They do weave in some, I'm going to say subplots to make it have more body to it, I guess. But at the end of the day, that's the premise. And the first act of this film is all about building character. Seeing Robert McCall become enamored of this town that he believes he may want to make his home. He arrived there on a mission, but after staying there because he gets injured and having to heal in this town, he comes to love this town. He has a daily routine. We know Robert McCall, at least Denzel's Robert McCall, is very OCD. So he has a daily routine where he goes to a coffee shop, which is next to a grocery mart or a fish shop. At the coffee shop, he meets a woman who is very nice to him and accepts him as he is. And we see him go through the stages of acceptance of this new life. And that was really fun to see. I was sitting there thinking as Denzel was moving around this town and everyone's smiling at him and waving at him, I was thinking that, well, in the latter part of Denzel's career, he has, as an African-American actor, he has taken a lot of roles that you kind of get a sense that they were possibly written for a Caucasian actor. But when Denzel was like, I want to do this film, they're like, well, by all means. Well, that was the same issue here. Not an issue, but it was just, I couldn't help thinking in the back of my head, Denzel is the only African-American actor who could play a character that walks about a small town in Italy that's probably never seen black people before and be completely accepted. But, that was, I put that aside so that I could, I guess you call it suspension of disbelief. And maybe I'm being cynical, but I really enjoyed, and it was one of the main things about this film that I recommended, seeing the development of Robert McCall and how the script takes its time to build up all of the investment so that when we see the payoffs and how Robert McCall avenges the people in this town, we're all on board. So whereas the other films, well, particularly the first film, that film kind of had a B-movie type of feel to it. I think it was mainly because of the villain, as I recall, in that first film. He was kind of over the top. The second film was a little bit more grounded, as I remember. But this film seems like it could almost cross over into, I would say, art film territory. That might be pushing it a little bit, but it has more of an elegant nature to the violence and to just the location, and the fact that it does not just jump headfirst into all of the action and violence. It takes its time to build. Now, at one point I was thinking, okay, I got it. Now let's move this along. I think the film starts to really take off in the scene that you've all seen in the trailers where Denzel takes the one thug's hand and he's like, now this is the medial nerve I'm compressing. You don't want me to go to 4. I think it starts to take off after that, and really takes off like a rocket ship. But just to be clear, this is not the action-oriented flick like the other two. It plays more like a crime thriller, like the Jack Reacher Amazon series, or even the Jack Reacher, the first one. I didn't see the second one, but the first Jack Reacher Tom Cruise film. I would say you should go see this in theaters because of the beautiful photography in Italy. But if that is not something that moves you, you could probably wait to see this on TV because it has a very low-key feel to it. So I'm giving this movie 3.5 wheels. I recommend it. Like I said, you can probably wait for it to come on streaming. But hey, I wanted to support Denzel as always, and Antoine Fuqua, who I like as a director, does a great job directing this movie. So I wanted to support him as well. So there you have it, 3.5 wheels out of 5. I will see you soon. That's the martini. Take care.